Guys, we're back with the notes for 5.7. Today we're only doing 3 problems and we're talking about solving quadratics by graphing. You should only be watching this video if you are a remote learner today and you are learning how to do this using Desmos. If you are in a classroom, generally speaking, you should be watching this for the other video so you can learn how to do it with a calculator because that's what you will have during a test. Okay? All right. Looking at these, first thing we're going to do is put our equations into the y equals part of our calculator. Now, if you're in Desmos, you don't have a y equals part, so we're going to type the equation in exactly how you see it. I'm going to be flipping back and forth between Desmos and my iPad so that you can see what I'm doing. So first thing I did was I typed my equation into the calculator. So I'm using the very top one up here. So f of x equals 2x squared plus 7 minus 9x, okay? Second thing I'm going to do is get a table so that I can get my information. So you guys have used tables before. We're going to edit this one just a little bit. So we're going to add a table. When I do that, it gives me x and y1. We are going to take out the 1, x, and we are going to call this f of x. That way when I type it in, it automatically gives me the points matching with the top equation in purple. Okay? We are going to use the x's that it uses on your graph on your paper. So if I look on my x's right here, the only x's that I am using go from -1 all the way up to +5. So those are the ones I'm going to use. -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And I'm going to let this decide how I graph. Okay? Another way you can use this to help you is to come up here to the wrench and set the calculator screen to match what's on your paper. So if I go to my settings, I can turn off those little minor grid lines. That way it doesn't have the mini lines. I can tell my x's to only go from -1 up to 5, and I want it to count by ones. And actually you could go from -2 to 6 because you can kind of see that far on your graph anyways. Okay. For my y-axis, it looks like we're going down to about a -5. And all the way up to a +8. Even though you can't see -5 and 8, you are stepping by ones. Okay, ooh, ones, there we go. You can hit the wrench again to turn that off. Okay, your graph should look exactly like what's on this. Okay, so I'm going to slide this over to the side, and we're going to go ahead and graph those points. Okay, so the first point, I'm going to use purple just because that's what is on our screen. So we're going to go 0, 7. We are going to use 1, 0, 2, -3, 3, -2, 4, 3, and then 5, 12 doesn't fit on my graph. So yours should look something like this. Notice that the minimum is not that lowest dot. If you kind of can see over here, your minimum is actually kind of off to the side. It's actually at 2.5, -3.125. So when you connect it, oops, and I put that point in the wrong spot. Sorry, my friends. So when you connect them, please be super careful that you make your graph look like what is on your calculator screen. So we're going to come down, we're going to hit our minimum just a little bit after, and then we're going to curve it on up. Okay? All right, now using Desmos, this makes your life very easy because when you see where the parabola crosses your x-axis, that is going to be your solutions. Okay? So if I look at this first answer, let me kind of draw you. These are the 2 things I'm looking for. So I'm looking for where it touches the x-axis. If it's a whole number, that's really great. 1, 0 means that x equals 1 is one of my solutions. Okay. The other one I can't see though. If you were on a Inspire calculator, like in the classroom, you would have to kind of hit your trace button and follow over until you find it. If you're on Desmos though, watch. See how it's already gray? All I have to do is put my mouse over there and it's going to tell me what that point is. 3.5, 0. So right here, I have 3.5, 0, which means that x equals 3.5 is my second solution, okay? We call them solutions. We can call them, let me write a couple words up here, We call them x-intercepts. We can call them solutions. We can call them zeros. And we can call them roots. All of those things mean pretty much the same thing. They are asking you, where does it cross the x-axis? Okay? All right. So our instructions tell us to graph, label the vertex. So we knew our vertex was not that point right here that we graphed. It's actually a little bit lower. So I'm going to draw an arrow again. Again, in Desmos, all you have to do is look for the gray dot. It will label it for you. So I could label it 2.25, negative 3.125. And I will give you guys just a second to write that down where I did. It says to write your solutions as ordered pairs. So when it says that, you want to write it this way. Draw the axis of symmetry as a dashed line and write its equation. Okay, so if I get rid of that, my axis of symmetry, if you remember, let me make this a little bit bigger, is going to be the graph line that cuts my parabola straight in half, and it goes through that vertex. Okay, since it is vertical, my axis of symmetry is going to be an x equals equation, and all I have to do is steal that x, so 2.25. Okay. All right, that is the end of our first problem. If you need anything, go ahead and write that down. That is what you will be doing on your own for problem 2. So if you wanted to pause, try number 2 first and then move on, that's absolutely fine. I'm going to go ahead and jump to the back. All right, so for the top 2 problems, we're going to be using the calculator to answer these questions. It says solve by graphing, and it wants us to graph it on scrap paper. Find your vertex and find your x-intercepts or solutions, okay? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these 2 guys. I'm going to type in my first equation as f of x equals 7x squared minus 3. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my table. Add a table. I want it to be x and f of x so that it will give me the points that I want. And since I don't have a graph in particular, I don't really know where that's going to go. I'm going to turn on my graph so that I can see it. Okay. Now that I can see it, I know that I'm probably going to be graphing up to about 7 or 8. 9 and 10 don't really fit on the graph. So I'm probably staying from -2 to +2. And actually, -2 and +2 don't even work, so I could just take those out. All right, these are pretty much my 3 key points. -1, 4, 0, -3, and 1, 4. Okay. I could graph those. Let me go ahead and insert a quick graph here. Let's see if I can do that. Oops, maybe not. Let's do this. Let's add a page. Ooh, maybe not. There we go. Okay, so we are going to graph this guy. Let me get us a little bit of a boundary line going on. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so our points that we had were 4, -3, and 4. Okay, we are in blue, so I'm going to use 4. 4, -3, and 4 again. We have a super, super skinny parabola. So I'm going to zoom it in just a little bit so we can see it. And to find our solutions, obviously we're going to need to look for these 2 points. Okay? All right, so we already know what our vertex is. Let me go ahead and come back up here and write that down. We know that our vertex is going to be that 0, -3. That was already written on our graph. But the pieces that I don't have yet are my two solutions. So all you have to do, remember, is come over to your graph, click on it, and it's going to label not only the vertex, but it's also going to label your two solutions. So we have 0.655 and negative 0.655. So we're going to write out both of those. So negative 0.655, make sure you put it as a point, and positive 0.655. Okay, that is all that it's wanting you to do on that problem. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and look at the second one. Okay, so for that second one, if I come over back to my Desmos, typing in my second equation, I'm going to get rid of these two guys. I'm going to type it in again as f of x, make myself a table, make it a regular x and an f of x, and then I'm actually going to graph it one more time here so that I know which kind of points I'm wanting. All right, so based on this graph, and I can drag it around, I really only need things from like -2 up to probably about 5. All right, so give me just a second. Let's go back down here on the iPad and draw ourselves another graph. So I'm going to copy that and make a new one. Okay, let's do this one in red again because that's what we have. So looking at my points, we are going to go -2, -4, -1, 2. And I won't read you all of them, but if you will just take a second and graph what you see. I wasn't quite high enough to get to 8, so mine went off, and that's not really a big deal. But should look something like this, and you can connect the dots. If you need to pause it for more time, please go ahead and do so. Otherwise, we're going to go back and answer our question. All right, so for this red problem, again, we want all three pieces. We want to give the vertex, and then we also want to give our two solutions. All right, so my first thing to get your vertex, remember all you have to do is come over here, click on the graph, find that highest point, and it's going to label it 1.5, 8.25. Just copy that down. To find your solutions, though, you're going to have to find on the x-axis the two places it hits. So we have one at -1.372, and we have a second one over here at 4.372. Okay, so let me see if I can scoot this over so you can see what I'm writing. Woo! There we go. All right, so first one. Make sure you do the (0) on both of them. And that right there should give you your final answers. Okay? You are not expected to complete the assignment until we get back into class, but your assignment will be to go back and do this example too, and then to finish these 6 problems. I'm going to ask that you make sure you can see the underlined pieces so you know what you're asking for, that you see this little x equals, and then these 2 buttons right here. If you're using Desmos, you don't really need to understand what the menu option does. That's going to be for the in-class calculator. Okay? All right, if you have questions, please let me know.